Welcome to another episode of Distory with Kate and Kirk. My name is Kirk from walruscarp.com, and today we're going back into the Tower of Terror over here in Orlando, Florida. We are focusing on the Foxtrot library, so not the left-hand side, which we covered in the last two episodes of Echo, but the best way Kate and I can put this is there are a lot of artifacts in this room, and it is impossible to cover all of them if we don't want to do this in a 20 episodes just for the artifacts. So instead, we're going to do it more like an Antiques Roadshow and cover what we think are some of the most salient and interesting pieces with history attached to them. With me to discover these randomized items with purpose is Kate, the Disney Cicerone. Kate, what's going on?
Hey, it's fun to be back in the tower. The libraries, I think we feel like we've been staring at these artifacts for a long time, but there is some really interesting things that we haven't discovered yet that are different from the library, the Echo library that we did in the last two episodes. There's some things that are the same, and there's a lot of things that are different. So I'm very excited to dig into those details. And I found out something really cool that I don't think anybody's ever really realized about the libraries before, but we'll see. Maybe we can discuss it later. So stay tuned for that. But before we go deep into detail about the Foxtrot library, I know that Kirk, you went over to the Tower of Terror while we were gone on a little break these past 2 weeks, and you did a little bit of reconnaissance work, taking some photos in the Echo library, right, to kind of follow up on some of the things that we were doing. So how'd your homework go?
Yeah, so based on our photos that we had previously looked at, I thought that the first artifact are these shoes. And I swore that they could possibly be cigar holders and ashtrays. And I still think that they might possibly because of the way that the belt buckle is structured. But we only had a photo that was from the front. And I desperately wanted to see the back. And if it was ripped, it was spooned out into a dish. But it's not. It's really strange. It looks like you could actually use these as little slip-on ornamental shoes, or more than likely somebody would have been using these just for like objects on your wall, or just
they don't look very comfortable.
It's not. No, dude, it's definitely not a shoe that you would want to do the parks in. I'm not rope dropping in those puppies.
Those are not your Crocs.
No, they are not my Crocs. All right, moving on. Next thing is I got a much nicer photo of the Victoria West envelope that we were talking about, but we didn't have something that was really up close and personal, which I thought was really cool. Next up is going to be our liquor cabinet, which is locked, and we were hypothesizing, and I was with some certainty, and now with 100% certainty, thought that there was going to be a secret compartment, which more than likely is a cigar holder on the bottom of the box. And you notice right here, there is clearly a rectangular cutout on the bottom of the box. So when you would open this liquor cabinet style box by unlocking it, it would have a little button that you would depress in the secondary part of the box, and that would make the hidden compartment pop out, which is confirmed, which is cool because, again, hard to see and hard to know unless you get a really good up-close picture. And then last but not least, I did find a really good, because again, this is kind of behind that table section, this little alien manual on to serve man, and it's literally a recipe book on how to serve people, and I just absolutely adore that. And I'd never physically seen it in person, so it was really exciting to go in there and see some of those things, particularly also the little, they look like aliens, but they're not. They're just little people, and we're the big giant monsters. I love that too, is up on the shelf. So it was great going back into Echo, but we now need to move forward and head into our next library, which is going to be on the right-hand side, which will be Foxtrot. So Kate, you want to take us away to Foxtrot?
Yeah. All right. Well, let's head on into Foxtrot just through a reminder about what we're talking about in terms of which one this is. If you go, this shows actually an evacuation map of the tower. So if you see the arrows going the wrong direction and you're confused, that's why it's the way you get out. But you can see there on the right-hand side is Echo and Foxtrot are right next to each other, and Foxtrot is the one that's on the right. So if you're shuffled into the library on the right, that is the one that we're talking about today. Just a reminder as we head into this that some of these objects might have moved around or look a little bit different than some of the photos that we're going to show you guys today. And that is because things have changed from 1994. We don't have great photos of current unless Kirk is able to get in there and take some photos of some things. But it's dark in that room. It's crowded. You're not in there very long. So it's there's
That's the biggest problem, Kate.
Yeah.
Like exactly what you just said. You nailed it, dude. Is even when I said to the cast members, like, do you mind if I take a couple photos? I don't have that much time before they're loading the next one, and they really like have to just move you through.
Yeah.
So I had to be the first one in, last one out, just to get an extra 30 seconds. And so I had to bring my low light camera just to even have a shot at getting anything decent.
Right, exactly. And so that's why the photos we have are a really wonderful resource. And we want to thank our collaborator on this project. This entire series for Tower of Terror is Disney historian Joshua Harris from the E82 project, who's helped us out with a lot of these photos and resources. And you can also check out his Disney park preservation projects at epcotlegacy.com. So thank you, Joshua, for your help with all of this. So that being said, just to kind of refresh us on, what the Imagineering vision was for this. This is actually from the Hollywood Haunted Hotel version that was the version before the Tower of Terror. And this is what the library looked like. To just kind of give you some context of their goal for this was to just have a lot of antiques. There is a desk, there is chairs, and there are a lot of vases, which I want you to note because we are going to see those come up later. And then I did make a little map for you guys to orient you in the room, because I think, honestly, Kirk, this was really tough for me to do because my brain was so in the other one, which is flipped from this one. It's mirrored. And so it felt very strange to like not be able to have things be the way we had just studied them. And now it's the opposite. And so it took a little while for me to orient myself for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Anyway, this is flipped. You can see we're going to go in the entrance. And what we're covering today is everything on the diagonal on the right side. So we're going to go to the bookshelf, the desk, the TV, and then the bookshelves on the far side of the room. So that's the only thing we're going to cover today is the right side of the room, right diagonal between the entrance and the exit. So I would love to start with this painting that is over the door, which is a still life. It's styled after the 19th century European still life paintings, particularly patterned after the work of Severin Rosen, who's a 19th century German-American painter known for his opulent still lifes, fruit still lifes or flowers. This particular one that we see in the tower is not in his catalog. Like I looked a long time to see if it was in his catalog, but it's not. But it is in his style. So European still life painting originated in the Netherlands in the 17th century, as well as illustrations in 19th century botany books. So it's not unlike the ones that we saw in the Echo Library. So I kind of wonder, I don't know for sure, but like it would be interesting to think that maybe this is a little bit of a tie-in from the Echo Library because it's positioned over the door. I don't know if that's true, but there is a lot of botany themed things in the other library, which is different than this one. So just kind of throwing that out there. But still lifes depict natural, usually non-living and human-made objects, and Dutch painters often depicted objects from the natural world, including fruit, insects, and rare flowers. So Rosen's work in particular often took artistic license with this subject matter, grouping together fruit and flowers from different growing seasons, and he also invented hues for specific flowers to suit his color scheme. His paintings often subtly suggest a process of growth and decay inherent in organic life forms. So this is what I think is interesting about this particular painting that we see in the tower. What you can see in this painting that is over the door is there is a cut slice of watermelon. And the idea is that it has a shelf life, right? Like you cut a slice of watermelon and it's going to start decaying. So I think that's kind of part of the theme that we're seeing here with this is that we're equally reminded of the origins of life. There's a subtle hint of the fragility and cycle of life and death, and also maybe a little bit of foreshadowing of our demise as well. So I don't know if the Imagineers intended it to go that deep, but there is that possibility of specifically choosing a still life for that reason.
Let me just say this last photo I'm looking at, that's a straight up hidden Mickey. I know they didn't intend it, but that's a hidden Mickey right there.
Oh, that's so funny. That's not the one in the tower, but that is really funny.
All of these composites, there is some sort of like missing elements of the fruit, right? Like I found another one of his paintings, and like this watermelon, I don't know. It looks like people are biting it, although it's like the strangest way as to like it's not like typical bite marks. Like it almost looks like it's like cotton candy at the top. Like it's all fluffy and floofy.
Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know why do people like it's. I did an art class in college, and that was like the first thing they made us do was draw a bowl of fruit. I don't know why that is like that. That must be some sort of like very specific art tasks to train people, but this guy devoted his life to it.
Yeah, I don't know for sure why it's one of the first things that's taught in our class. Maybe somebody in our community can clue us in on that, because that's an interesting point. So where we're going to head to next is that bookshelf just to the right as you enter. And on the shelf that's down below, we see a lion and kind of like a bowl on with some legs. And so the lion itself is a bronze lion, likely European or American, early 20th century, possibly neoclassical or heraldic lion. I couldn't find this exact lion anywhere. I just kind of found some various details about it, but it does have a Twilight Zone reference, which is the jungle from season 3, episode 12. Alan Richard returns from Africa after overseeing a dam project. He mocks the local tribe's superstitions and talismans, discarding warnings of curses and animal spirits. So as the night progresses, Ellen begins experiencing increasingly terrifying sounds of being stalked by animals of the jungle. So he starts hearing like weird sounds and stuff that sound like the jungle, even though he's clearly in the city. It culminates in him seeing a lion in his apartment, which is what I'm showing you guys here. This giant lion is on his bed. And what you might not notice is I'm pretty sure that's his wife who's on the bed next to him. You see like hair of a human that's there that maybe the lion already got to her. It's very brief at the end of the episode, and then it attacks him as the screen fades to black. So lions are quite a bit in. We've seen it already outside in the queue. We saw lions. All the like drawer pulls that are in this particular room in both libraries actually have lion heads on them, and I really think it is a tie back into this episode and that kind of fear of being stalked by a lion. So it's supposed to add a little bit of extra fear into the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. I think it's interesting because this particular episode has themes of colonial arrogance versus spiritual retribution, man versus nature or the supernatural, but there's also the fear of the unseen becoming real. And I think that is what we have the tie back into this particular storyline. It's like what you dismiss can become reality, and it's a warning. You only ignore the supernatural at your peril, I think is kind of the warning here that we're going for with the lion. So very significant. You know how much I love lions too. So in Disney history, not in general. I'm a penguin gal, but just saying.
You should see how she feels about cowardly ones.
I actually just made a post that was featuring a cowardly lion for
oh, no way.
Later this
there
month. Yeah, because it's for when I'm away. But also on the shelf we have a Chinese bronze ding. Do you have anything you want to share about that one, Kirk?
I don't know why they're called dings, to be honest, except for like if you hit them with a spoon, do they go like bang?
I don't know.
I really don't know. I have no idea why necessarily, but functioning wise, they use these occasionally to cook or present offerings for ancestral rites. So like folks that had passed away. And it was a symbolism in a lot of ancient Chinese ideology. Now, there's lots of different representations of these. This is probably more than likely not an authentic piece, but rather a bronze that was reproduced sometime in the, I would say, 18th or 19th century, more than likely 19th century, something that's contemporary just because of cost-wise. But these three-legged cauldrons are the most common of all ritual vessels and ended roughly during China's Bronze Age. And it was a symbol of political authority and legitimacy of the ruling house. And in some of them, they would have the family emblem. So depending on how much wealth, you would not have a generic one. You would actually have one for your ancestors that passed. But a lot of time, the one thing that's really kind of cool is that this is definitely made out of bronze because we see that wicked patina on there, which is pretty cool. I did find other, like the Met had one that has a little bit of patina. It's actually in pretty good shape. A ritual tripod cauldron or ding cauldron. And this one was from the 12th to 11th century BCE. So this is very, very old. And it says, linked to power and dominion over the land, the ding is one of the most important ritual vessels ever. They were used to cook and serve food offerings similar to ritual bronze vessels. The ding were often made out of ceramics and then cast in bronze during the Shang dynasty. But they also could use these as incense burners. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. The three-legged ding.
Well, and the funny part is, and some Rhonda in our chat is mentioning, it looks like an optical illusion for this. Like why?
Oh, it's just the leg is behind it, Rhonda. It's come on.
It does look like it's standing on two legs, though. It's kind
It
of.
looks like, you know what it looks like. Hang on. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Did you guys ever see the movie Return to Oz? This is a Disney movie.
Yeah.
So like, doesn't that look like kind of like TikTok's legs? Like they had to use like a gymnast to actually perform in this, which is crazy. This dude had to hunch over. So a little bit of Disney history for you. TikTok was manned by an actual person named Michael Sundin in 1985, and he was while a puppeteer would do the head mechanically or remotely. So like this dude was stuck in there, but that's what it kind of looks like. It's like just like those pants and legs, if you get what I'm saying.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that was like a human in there doing that.
There's a dude in there. It's actually a great video idea. Yo, do you know there was a dude in there? Right?
You can do that one.
All right, I got it. It is pretty crazy.
That is wild.
I love that movie. I just want to say how much I wish lunchbox trees were a thing. I just want to say that because lunch pail trees would be amazing.
That would be amazing. I could just send my kids out to the tree and not have to like make
I love
lunches
that
anymore.
I think that movie messed me up as a kid too, because I watched that and Labyrinth like way too much, and Monster Squad, which has horrible language, by the way. I can't show that to my kids anytime soon.
As is most of the movies from our childhood. Like we had to wait a long time to let my kids see Goonies. Like Goonies was like,
yeah, Goonies is bad.
Goonies. I love Goonies.
I love Goonies too. I never even like as a kid, I was like, I didn't notice that they said bad language or anything. Like, so I mean, I guess my kids wouldn't notice it either, but.
And it was definitely the era of like kids running around unsupervised on their own wherever they want to go. You know, like this zero supervision.
I don't think I started swearing until like 5th or 6th grade anyway. So I don't know. It didn't impact me negatively.
Yeah, there you go. So kids
still not letting them see it because it's horrible.
It's got stuff in it. Do you have anything about these two ladies that are up on the bookshelf?
I do. I love two ladies on a bookshelf. These ladies are a pair of porcelain flower maidens, and they're likely, and we kind of see this mirrored a little bit outside. Remember, we had seen statues and allegories for the seasons. Particularly, this looks like they are related to spring because there's like growth and harvest. You can see like the maidenesses have flower garlands and baskets with fruit and grapes. There are lots of different Germanic versions of this. That was my best way to find them. You could find other different porcelain style spring with these bouquets. So they looked very, very similar. This one has a baby though, which I mean, if you're going to rest your flowers, you might as well put it on a little cherub's head.
Put that kid to work.
He's got his working papers. It's fine. And then I found another one where it used again. I think it's weird that there isn't a cherub in this because I found that was pretty common in a lot of these spring porcelain style ones.
Yeah, interesting. Porcelain is a really important feature that I want you guys to just put a pin in that because we're going to get back to that later. So I'm glad that you said that. All right, let's move on to the upper ledge here. There's a couple things. There is this bust of a woman, which is an Art Nouveau Parisian terre éclance sculpture bust. So I looked this up and it's an early 20th century French bust of a young woman, has floral highlights and deep relief. I don't know if I have the actual name of this, but it's just marked with it. The original bust has the words Terre d'éclance Charenton déposé on it. So it means roughly made of éclance clay produced in Charenton. I'm mispronouncing that. I'm butchering that. Sorry. It's a suburb of Paris, designed and registered. So basically that's where it was made in Paris is what it's marked with.
That's what Kate looks like when she finds something new about Disney history that has never been found before.
Anyway. Next to her is a candlestick that's kind of ornate. Do you have anything about that one, Kirk?
Although this is a candlestick, you can notice that it's actually electric because the wax that's dripping on it is clearly boogie woogie woogie. Do 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 do. I do 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 do. I would have to take off my roller skates and get in my socks on the rink That was how they ended every single roller skating night at the Evesham skating rink. Shout out Evesham skating rink, which doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, sad.
Yeah.
Skate World for us.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. I love it. So yeah, this is a small electric boudoir lamp, Art Nouveau style. And it was an electric lamp made to look like a candlestick that's dripping. Below the candle itself is this like little flanged out pan, which is pronounced as a bobachet.
Oh.
A bobachet. Which they would use bobachet for chandeliers and candelabras as well. They were designed specifically to catch the wax that dripped from candles in early chandeliers, but they are now obviously used more as a accent piece for these. So I have a picture of a bobachet that they would be able to remove so that it was easier for cleaning. But then they have tons of different ones that you could buy and you can deck out. If you go to, we're sponsored by grandbrass.com, and you can check out their bobachet section and buy all of your bobachet needs.
They're going to be like, wow, these things are really selling.
Weird. The bobachets are really flying off the handle here. Which would actually be terrible if bobachets flew off the handle, because that would mean hot wax is going everywhere. So that's...
Oh my gosh. I didn't know that was that was called, though. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know either. I had no idea.
Bobachet.
But in my head the entire time when I was doing the research, I was like, the electric one just has that for show, but what the heck are those things called? So I was looking up like diagrams of candlesticks, and that's where I found, a bobachet.
Diagrams of candlesticks sounds right about correct for Distory.
Yep.
It's just like we learned this, the sticking Tommies over in Big Thunder. It's like a thing. It's a thing.
Now you're never gonna forget that that's a bobachet.
Bobachet. I love it. Okay. Other things we see up here is this painting, which is actually it's a painting of Rembrandt called Self-Portrait at age of 34. So this is Rembrandt in his 30s. He
looks terrible.
He looks a little rough. Here's what it actually looks like, the real painting. He's in this confident pose. He's self-assured, dressed in expensive-looking fur and velvet, his hat laced with jewels. But I found just a little bit of interesting history about this. It said, even though he's a Dutchman living in the 1640s, Rembrandt is wearing the clothes of a gentleman of the 1520s, and his pose is based on paintings by Titian and Raphael, and I want to say Durver, I might be mispronouncing that, of a similar date. So as the subject of the painting, Rembrandt is portraying himself as a Renaissance gentleman, and as the artist, he's both paying homage to and directly comparing himself with the most famous artists of that time. So he specifically played dress up of wealthier people of an earlier era in this painting, which I think is really interesting, especially for the tower being everybody's kind of dressing up and putting on airs. And so is Rembrandt. So, yeah.
Fun fact, that's also what Rembrandt's fake ID looks like. Rembrandt, one name?
It's just Rembrandt, like Prince.
Just Rembrandt? Nobody will believe that. Trust me, I dressed up for this. It's going to work. Can I get a 6-pack? The pair of neoclassical Old Paris porcelain mantle urns or vases are dated somewhere in the mid-19th century. I learned a new phrase here, and it is ground. I never realized that the base color or coat can be called the ground. In this case, these would be a green ground porcelain vase. These were hand-painted typically for decoration. They were heavy gilded, meaning the gold adornments on them. And you could see that they do make these also contemporary too. I found a really cool tea set that used similar coloring and shading, which I thought was neat.
Oh.
And again, they call this Old Paris in terms of the style. And I feel like, Kate, this would be, if I had some bank, dude, this is like a good gift for you.
Oh, I would love that.
A 19th century Old Paris dessert service. Like, come on. It's only $2,300. I'll figure it out.
I'll get you that penny machine, and you can give me that.
That's perfect, dude. That's. I feel like we both win.
No, it's actually really lovely. I love that it's kind of an elegant design and that it's simple.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's absolutely my kind of style.
Now, symbolism wise on this vase that we see in the tower is we do see a cornucopia and it's overflowing. So I feel like that's, kind of the symbolism that we've seen here in terms of like wealth and prosperity overflowing. I'm guessing that's like more of a metaphor for abundance to be found with like the upper class. But that's what I found for this. Did you catch anything about these suckers?
Nope. I left it to you.
Cool.
So
sweet.
Now we get to move on to this desk, which is just beyond it in front of the window. We've already discussed the curtains and whatnot and how they have just a little nod to the logo of the Hollywood Tower Hotel on them. And the desk is similar to some of the other ones we've seen. So there are some interesting lamps that are on the table, at least in the 1994 version, which these lamps have changed, and we'll show you that in a moment. But I was looking at these because they kind of look like electric candles, like a pair of electric candles on a base. And I was like, they look so weird. Like, I've never seen a lamp that looks like that. So I was looking it up, and I'm actually pretty sure that these are not presented in this manner and as they were supposed to be, as I'm fairly sure that these particular lamps from the 1920s, they're cast iron Art Nouveau candlelight socket table lamps. And I'm pretty sure they were supposed to have a lampshade on them, which they do not. So they just, for whatever reason, they either didn't know that they're supposed to have a lampshade or they just left it off of them. But you can see in this example that it's very clearly supposed to have a lampshade on them, so they don't look so weird, I guess. So in any case, they do not have these lamps anymore that they had. They've now changed them to these Tiffany style lamps that almost look like flowers that are kind of like wilted, which is interesting. Below it, we do see this kind of round container that looks maybe like a brass container. It's very hard to tell because of the dust and grime and whatnot that they put on these things for the storytelling. But it didn't used to be that. Back in 1984, it was actually a porcelain sugar bowl that was green and white, which I looked up, and it is actually a Wedgwood olive jasperware small sacrifice sugar bowl is what it's called. And it's a lidded sugar bowl dipped in olive green jasperware with yellow and beige neoclassical figures in relief. Jasperware, if you don't know, is a type of unglazed stoneware developed by Josiah Wedgwood in the 1770s, known for its matte finish and typically featured a white bas-relief decorations on a colored background. So this is what it looks like up close. But for whatever reason, they removed it, maybe because people were trying to break it, or maybe they just changed the set design. It's hard to tell, but now it is this kind of almost like metal box instead. Next to that is actually a notepad, and this is where we get into some very unique storytelling elements that I think most people probably totally miss in this particular room. So on the notepad itself, it says, "Porcelains of Europe, although susceptible to earthquake damage, are an important element in films and attractions of Hollywood." So that's what it says on that particular note that is sitting there on the desk. And I think that is a little bit of a clue as to the theme of this room in particular, because if you look at the book that is next to it, it does actually feature porcelain. On the book is open to pages of porcelain items and vases and whatnot. And this one's from 1994. They have changed the book out since 1994. But it still features like vases as its main features. Now, the other desk in the other room was different, and it featured plants and botany. And this one features porcelains. And I started to look at this and I was like, you know what? Like, there's a lot of vases in this room, way more than the other one. And so I think this is actually one of the like themes of the room, is that there's more porcelain vases, vessels, structures. There are some in the other room, but there's way more in this one as we're looking around the room. And I wonder if it's tied in that way with this, what they're studying in this particular book on the table. And this is just pure speculation, but to me, it seems like it might be a bit of a theme. I also wonder if like people are doing research for movie sets, because this is set in Hollywood. So that obviously sounds like it. They're talking about earthquakes and what makes sense moving on a movie set, but it's also very like they just created this set with a whole bunch of vases. You get where I'm like going with this? Is like, It's funny because they also used all these porcelains for their set for the tower, but they're also like setting it as movie sets and using props, and it's all very connected, which is funny to me. Other things we see on this table, we see some letters that have 1939 airmail stamps on them, just like in the other library, which implies they're potentially mailing something overseas, which is different I don't really know how that ties in with the porcelain stuff unless they're trying to request porcelain items from some exotic place to be shipped in for set design is what I think it might be. There's also a key that looked like it said 1002, which I'm speculating is, potentially birthdays of the Imagineers that they chose specific dates, either of them or their family members or whatnot. Like it could be 1002 for October, but that is 100% pure speculation. Don't quote me on that in terms of like, this is what it is. I'm just wondering if it might be. There's also an inkwell to the left. That's what that round object is that's sitting next to the letters and the key. And then there is something that's really interesting on the right side of the letters is this object that's standing upright that's holding a box and has kind of like a leaf pattern at the bottom. And this is actually a matchbox holder and ashtray, possibly by Bradley and Hubbard, but we'd have to see the bottom to verify it. So that's all that is it's holding a box of matches. Kirk, do you have anything about this matchbook holder?
I do. So I was able to find one that was similar to it. So I was able to find at the Franklin D. Roosevelt Library Museum actually had one that President Roosevelt actually owned. So this was an ashtray with a match holder at the top. Now his was unique. You notice that there's actually a pin that goes in his, which means that you would put individual matches in this, where the one that's in the tower actually holds an entire match book. Now, what I also think is kind of strange about these is that there's no direct like striker plate or anything to be used on here. Because you would think that would be, if you're going to hold matches, like what are you lighting them with?
Your jeans.
I couldn't. Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything that would match that exactly, but I found one that a former president had.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought it feels like a fire hazard to have like the whole matches just sitting underneath your lit cigarette. That seems dangerous to me.
Well, I mean, it's metal and the matches are above, so it's not like stray ashes are going to necessarily like jump, but yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't store my matches next to anything that was like lit. So, just saying.
I mean, yeah. Hang on. I like to put my gas right next to the furnace. I store my propane next to my nuclear reactor.
Next to the book, we actually have a brass cup, which is similar to the one that we saw in the other library. And we'll see more of these later as we move on underneath the TV. There's a whole set of these cups in this room. But this is a brass enamel cup, likely made in India. And the enameling is a decorative art form involving fusing powdered glass into a metal surface through heat. In India, this technique has a rich history, flourishing under the, I think it's Mughal Empire from the 16th century onwards. Meenakari, the art of enameling in India, is believed to have been introduced by the Mughals. I'm totally butchering all of this, and I'm so sorry. With Lahore, Delhi, and later Jaipur, I think is how you say it, becoming prominent centers for its production. Traditional Meenakari involves intricate designs etched into gold, silver, or brass, which are then filled with vibrant enamel colors and fired in a kiln. Common motifs include flowers, leaves, birds, like peacocks, and often incorporates intricate geometric patterns. So that's what we see on that particular glass there or the cup there that is likely from India. Next to it there is actually what looks like a postcard of some sort. Kirk, do you want to tell us more about that?
Yeah, so this is actually a mounted photograph, and they're known as cabinet cards. So a cabinet card is a form of popular photography from the late 19th and 20th century, and it came from a smaller form of photographic artwork that was really popular that was called carte de visite, which was introduced in the 1860s. They were a lot smaller, but you can notice that it has like a border, and most of the time it was only made of portraits. What I think is kind of interesting about the cabinet card, which cabinet cards are much larger. So I'll show you another image of one. Cabinet cards are a lot larger. They're typically not done of like statues or historical locations until much, much later on. Sometimes you see them of buildings. Like I was able to find, these are ones that are from Minnesota, which is kind of crazy. Like it's just like buildings in Minnesota. It's merchants, There's a couple of people from a church. There's the Aurora Skiing Club. Do they have a bigger picture of this? Please, please have a big picture. Look how fun they are. Look at them with their little hats and everything.
I love that.
Oh, it's so fun. But the size of these, it had to be 4¼ inches by 6½ inch. And they were very popular. This is after the smaller versions came out. So this is like 1870s to early 1900s. And it looks like some sort of classical sculpture is on this cabinet card. And they were like typically like on like a thicker cardstock. But this is not a postcard. This is a photographic art piece.
It's probably where we get the standard size of 4x6 from. It's probably that, when we think of like digital design, whatnot, we use 4x6 all the time. So that's really interesting. I totally thought it was a postcard. So thank you for verifying that.
Yeah, it's like got like a thicker cardstock than you would get on a postcard. And it was something that, it's like kind of like a memento of a moment in time or a group, but typically of portraits. So I thought it was interesting that they elected to do a statue because I've only seen buildings and people, but almost 90% people.
Well, I think it ties into the theme that we're going to here. They're clearly doing research for props for a movie set. And so that's probably why they have a photo of this like marble statue.
Yeah, I'm curious as if it's an actual statue that exists, or did they put it on there to match the porcelain or marble conversation for artifacts for
and that
films.
I couldn't tell because I couldn't research it because I don't have a good enough photo of that exact statue.
I need to go back.
Yeah.
Let's go into Foxtrot, kids. I got to get a photo of it.
That's right. That's Kirk's new assignment. Just underneath that card is actually another card, which is the Mystic Seer card that says "It is quite possible" is what it sees on it. And we already talked about the Mystic Seer in the last episode, which is a Twilight Zone episode called The Nick of Time from season 2, episode 7. And the machine we'll see also up on the shelf where the card came from. But I love that they put this as part of the set design with this desk, that it is quite possible. And that could have a number of meanings based on, what that person's mindset was. So I don't know. Do you have any commentary about that card in particular in this location?
I don't know. It gives me hope.
It gives you hope. It is quite possible. Yeah.
Anytime I feel down, I just look at that and I feel instant relief.
There you go. You need that for your desk. It is quite possible. So on the upper ledge above the desk, we see a couple of things. Not only that Mystic Seer machine from the Twilight Zone, a reproduction of it. We also see a couple of what looks like Greek vases and a green head and like an imprint of a horse. You can see it up close here. Kirk, do you have anything about these particular objects?
I do. Particularly I have the vase and I have the head.
Okay.
So it's just normal. So the large flared vessel is called a calyx crater or a mixing bowl for wine and water. The calyx crater's profile spreads out the cup like the calyx of a flower. Now, if you don't know what the calyx of a flower is, let me show you.
Okay.
It's basically coming out of the bottom, like what we would call the stem, or in this instance, it's the pedicel. And the pedicel reaches up to the nectary and then flouts out like in this big flare of the sepal or the calyx. And the calyx is actually not the flowering petal part, but rather the base. Like you can really see calyxes well on roses. Excuse me, Rose, your calyx is showing. Like you could see on this this image right here of the rose, you can see the stem, and then the calyx is the part that goes around the flowering parts. It almost gives it like structure and balance so the flower doesn't like just flop and fall down petal wise. So it's like adding structure to the plant. So, but this, going back to how it equates to the Tower of Terror, the crater calyx vessels looked like this, and they flare kind of out on the side, much like the flower. And then they would have sometimes handles on the top. In the instance of the one here, it's on the bottom. And again, they were used to mix either water, wine, or other liquids together. But then obviously they could be just used for ornamentation. But in this instance, I believe they were actually used for mixing.
Huh. Was it calyx? Is that what you said? Calyx. New word.
Calyx.
Word of the day.
A calyx crater is the style of flared vase. Mm-hmm.
So that's the one we see on the left.
We've learned, what was the other one? Babochet?
Babochet? Yeah.
A babochet and a calyx.
New words.
You'd be like, did you notice that Daisy has quite a crazy looking calyx? You're like, what are you talking about? You're like, oh, I almost dropped the wax from my babochet. You're like, what do you say, dude? Use English.
I love it.
That's how I impress my friends. I use that voice too, if you were just curious.
As you should.
That's my impress my voice, my friend's voice.
Okay. Do you have anything about the green head?
I do. Green heads are better than one. We've got a bronze, and this is like Hellenistic / Roman, so we're talking like Greece, Rome. And I found something out about his hairstyle.
Okay.
This is an Alexander the Great anastole or anastole. It's Anastole hairstyle, where the hair is parted off the center and swept to the back and kind of has a flowing, or as we call it, the mullet. Oh, boys had mullets back then, dude, or anastoles. And I was able to find one that's similar, but this is out of marble. And so very similar to that parted hairstyle and then flowing in the back. So it is business up front, party in the back. And there's so many different representations of these bronzes. But I think this actually might legitimately also be Alexander the Great. It's not for sure that this bronzed patinaed head is attached to like a physical person, like an actual entity, not like because it's just his head. It's not actually attached to anything. But I mean, if it's supposed to be representative of a specific person beyond just like a Greek, but maybe it's Alexander the Great. If not, at least we know his hair looks fire.
There's a lot of representation of people and faces that are frozen in time. And I feel like that ties back into this general theme of the Twilight Zone of people who have been lost or frozen.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's a good call.
That's just kind of my own theory. But I was laughing because I was thinking about mullet. And I was like, business in front, party in the back. It's kind of like the Twilight Zone because they're all very serious and whatnot when you enter the tower. But there's definitely a party once you get inside.
Tip Top Club, dude.
It's like the mullet Disney ride.
Okay. I just want everybody to know who's worried. Kate is perfectly fine. She's okay. We're looking into it.
Anyway, before we move on to the rest of this half of the room, we have to take a quick break just to talk about a few things that we got going on at Walrus Carp and Disney Cicerone. So, Kirk, what you got going on over there? You've been very busy recently.
We've been working on lots of our Halloween and spooky season theme park shirts, which you can find over at walruscarp.com. But I have physical fun stuff to show. So not only am I rocking our It's Not So Scary Steamboat Willie style jack-o'-lantern.
Oh, that's fun.
I think this one is right up your alley, Kate. It says Girls Night Out, and it's a bunch of witches in the woods with a cauldron.
Oh my
I feel
gosh.
like that's your vibe.
I love that.
And so I got that for Mel. It's like kind of a lithograph too, is what I was going for. And then this year's monster for Walrus Carp, we always do a monster. This year it is the Wolfman. So the Wolfman, and I fell in love with two-sided designs. So it looks like you're seeing them from both angles, which I think is fun. We've got our pizza fry shirt, which is totally retro, 80s coded. It's got lightning. It's like an AC/DC rock shirt, but for pizza fries. I am going to rock that this week because I think people are going to freak out over it. They're going to like that one. We've got the Arts Tricks of the Trade, easily the most popular house this year at Halloween Horror Nights. The scariest house, though, happens to be the Jason Universe shirt. So we, of course, have a little love for our slasher friends. And there's still some more to come. It's early in the season for us, but we have about 10 designs out. And then our number one selling design, you know what? I'll pull this up right now just because it's so freaking popular. Every year, this shirt just, it smashes. And I wish I could tell you the reason why, except for it's clever. Our number one selling shirt, like all the time, is Night of the Living Land. People love it because it's straight up Night of the Living Dead, but Night of the Living Land, and there's zombies on a living with the land boat, and there's a zombie holding a cucumber. And instead of saying what the food is, I pulled grains, like it's like brains, but it's actually just corn behind it. So, but I've had that shirt out for like 4 years, and every time this time of year, it always smashes. So,
oh my gosh, I love it.
One.
That's
so yeah, you can find all this stuff and more with free shipping at walruscarp.com. Kate, what's cooking?
Well, I am working really hard on writing 2 new books and also editing my audiobook for A Glimmer of Pixie Dust, Finding Our Hope in the Disney Story. So that's what I'm working on right now. But because it is spooky season, I did want to talk about What the Mansion Eyes See, which is the middle book in the Pixie Dust in the Park series. It is a fiction series that's based in the Disney parks and has Disney history nerds in it. So if you love Disney history and you love this, it's a little bit of a romance too. So if you're interested in that, this is Colette and Eric's story. I love it because it not only integrates like Haunted Mansion history into it, but also explores themes of change, trust, and how we sometimes build emotional walls around us to protect us. But those walls can also keep us kind of isolated and lonely. So it explores, how to navigate that within the context of a relationship, and also with some Disney history and also some suspense kind of woven into it as well. And I think this one was your favorite, Kirk, right? Of the ones that I had. So.
It's my favorite. I love it. This is the one that I want to see made into a screenplay and a live action. I need it in my life.
This one would be really fun as a screenplay for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that one is available on Amazon and also Audible if you prefer that I read it to you during the spooky season. So all of my books are available on Amazon. You can find them there. And also Kindle Unlimited. If you're a Kindle Unlimited subscriber, you can read them all for free, or free including your subscription. Let's jump back into the tower. We are now moving from the desk and chair and window area and moving to the TV corner over on the right-hand side. And there is actually a table that is underneath the TV in this particular room rather than a globe like we saw in the other room. And Kirk, do you want to talk a little bit about the liquor bottles that we see there?
Yeah. So the liquor bottles kind of mirror what we had over on the other side with decanters that are like locked up, like meaning no access, but they wanted to display them. So very, very similar to the other side of Echo.
Yeah. And they did change over the years too. So I'm pretty sure this is how they are now. They used to be these kind of like rectangular glass containers, 3 of them, a trio of them. And now they are more, I don't know what you'd call this, trapezoidal. Like they're definitely, it's a different set. So they replaced them at some point with a different set, but it still has that locking mechanism on the neck of the bottle. So guests can't access their own alcohol in the hotel. We also see a set of enamel cups that are similar to the ones that we saw on the desk. You can actually see in the 1994 picture, there's a cup missing from it. But then there's only 4 of them in this later one. So I know that there's one of these cups that is also in the Echo library on the desk. So it migrated to the other library. Maybe a guest carried it in there storytelling wise, but that's the rest of the cups. And then we have inside the TV cabinet, there is a bust and a painting. It's really, really hard to tell what they are because of the grating in front of them. Kirk, did you find anything about these at all?
Mm-mm. Although it almost seems like the bust in particular is like really worn down, where the other ones have a lot more ornate detail and etching. It seems like this one was like out in the elements more and just got worn down from weather.
Yeah, I think so too. I noticed that too. Interesting. We've already talked about the TV and its connection to the Twilight Zone in multiple episodes, so I'm going to not talk about that. But if you want to catch that, that is in our Echo Library episodes. I think in our pre-show episode as well, we talked about that particular style of TV and also why TVs are in the Hollywood Tower Hotel, even though it is 1939. Above the TV, we see all these Egyptian artifacts. And remember, in the previous library, we kind of discovered that these artifacts it seems like there's no rhyme or reason behind them, but they actually seem to be grouped by region of the world that they come from. So this is kind of like our Egyptian corner, which is similar to the other library also has Egyptian artifacts near the television as well. And just as a reminder, everything that we run into that has Egyptian influences could be referencing the Queen of the Nile episode from the Twilight Zone in season 5. So just that's probably likely to tie into the Twilight Zone there. One of the objects that I looked up here, Kirk, because there's so many here, I had to just pick one. So This one I picked was the obelisk because we love obelisks here on Distory. And if you weren't with us all the way back in our Haunted Mansion series, we talked extensively about the history of Egyptomania and the popularity of Egyptian culture in the rest of Europe and even in America. Like it just kind of went all over the world in this time period. But specifically, obelisks kind of transferred to other places. They have symbolism in ancient Europe as the connection to the sun god Ra, and its shape represents a ray of sunlight. The pyramid at the pyramidion at the top was often gilded to reflect the sun's rays, literally making it shine like the sun. And it served as a spiritual beacon linking earth and the divine. It was also located at temple entrances, but during that Egyptomania period, we saw a lot of them move to Rome, Paris, London, and New York as their scene of symbols of imperial grandeur. Some actually traveled from Egypt to London, but there's other ones that were just created, built during this time period in that shape. Like I want to say the Washington Monument is a very popular one that was an obelisk. But we did discuss this in our Haunted Mansion series, and I just wanted to bring it up because I love this fact so much, and we haven't talked about it in a really long time, that there was going to be an obelisk in the mummy scene of the Haunted Mansion, where you see the mummy not being able to talk. It's a Mark Davis gag where the mummy can't talk because he's all wrapped up, and the old man who's trying to listen for the wisdom from the mummy, he can't hear, so he has that hearing device to try to listen, and so he can't talk and he can't listen, and so the secrets are locked up with the mummy. But in that particular scene, this is the blueprints from the Haunted Mansion. You can see there was going to be an obelisk there that they never ended up actually putting in the scene, but they did put a little tiny one in the attic of the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland in particular, right in front of the piano where the shadow is playing the piano. You can find an obelisk if you look for it. It's a little nod to what never happened in the graveyard. So just a little fun nod to that. Kirk, what did you find that you wanted to talk about up here on the shelf?
I'm going to add to the obelisk on the very top. Here's another fun word for you, that you'd either cover that pyramidal shape at the top with either gold or silver, some sort of alloy. But that coating, that metal coating, was called an electrum.
Oh, new word.
Yeah.
The elaborate painted box is the main speaker, is what Joshua is telling us.
Oh, in the center?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I didn't realize that. Thank you.
Yeah, you couldn't tell because it kind of looks like, it does look like a rug or a tapestry or something.
Yeah.
That,
So interesting. Thank you.
On the left-hand side, you kind of see this little soapstone or limestone or marble carving that reminds us very similar to the Sphinx. So, for those that don't know, the Egyptian Sphinx had the body of a lion, head of a human. There's a lot of, the rumor is that this was actually a huge lion head, and then over time things broke apart, or a pharaoh wanted to put their own face on instead. And then it was used for target practice during the World Wars, so that definitely happened as well. But I did see something that I thought was kind of interesting, that this is just a conspiracy. One of the conspiracies is that we had talked previously in another episode about the god Anubis and how maybe this was a crouching Anubis and the Sphinx actually fit in it. But you can see how top heavy that snout area would have been.
Yeah.
And it could have easily fallen off over time, and then they restructured because it seems very out of balance at how small the head is versus how big the paws are. So just something interesting. And the one that we found here, although it's not particularly one specific historical figure, in the tower itself, they do have these like marble facsimiles of Egyptian sphinxes. I was able to find, if you got $28,000, some ones that are from
It's around here somewhere.
Italy. Yeah, if you have $28,000, you can get some very, very small marble sphinxes of your own.
Good
I imagine
Lord.
the ones in the tower cost nowhere near that.
I wish I was the kind of person that just had that kind of money laying around to be like, I think I'll buy a sphinx
It's
for
like
my man.
silly though. Like, what are you gonna do with that? You know,
I
What are
would
you gonna do
never-
with
I
a
would
bunch of
never buy
sphinxes
that.
at your house. Yeah, it's a ridiculous thing to have. And then on the right hand side, this little guy that's blue kind of caught my attention because we really haven't seen kind of like a sarcophagus.
Yeah.
So this would be like a mummified funerary figure of Shabti, and characteristically, he is blue glazed with simple facial features and front paneling, and these Ushabtis are small servants for the deceased in the afterlife. So not only did you have all of these servants in your real life, but in the afterlife, you also need servants. So you make a bunch of these blue little Shabtis to be with you. I was able to find one in the British Museum that use that same blue glaze, very, very similar. But they have on the cartouches, cartouche in like hieroglyphs. If you ever see it, like if you're in Spaceship Earth, you'll see cartouches as well. It's basically like a circle or an oval that goes around a bunch of hieroglyphs. Typically, it's like a royal name or significance is written within there, and then the rest is all the language of it. So, yeah.
Yeah. We get lots of new words today.
Yeah, good luck remembering them all.
Do you have anything else about any of these other things? There's so many things up here.
Nope.
Okay.
I'm good.
I want to say it's what Isis and Anubis are also at the top, on top of the speaker up there as well, which we talked about Isis last week. But there's definitely a lot of just Egyptian sculptures and things. And so we don't have time to go over them all, but those are some of the ones we found interesting.
If you take any of them off of that platform, a giant boulder comes rolling down towards you. So just don't do that.
But look into the eyes of the idol.
Mm-hmm.
We're moving to the bookshelf that's on the left of the TV now. There is a lamp that's in front of it. We've already talked about in the previous episode, but it does have the Hollywood Tower Hotel logo on it. And we're pretty sure that the fringe is probably hand-dyed, like the ones that were in the lobby. But that's all we have about lamps for that. But on the shelf that's behind the lamp is actually, in 1994 at least, there is a stack of books. And on top of the stack of books are some glasses that are shattered. And this is a reference to the Twilight Zone episode Time Enough to Last from Season 1, Episode 8. It follows Henry Bemis, a bookish man who longs for uninterrupted time to read. Like, this is all he wants to do in his life is read. This reading is his main goal. Its life purpose is to read books. But after surviving a nuclear apocalypse, he finally has all the time in the world to read, but he accidentally breaks his glasses, rendering him, ironically, nearly blind and unable to read at all. That's why we see these shattered glasses sitting on here. That's not the only connection to the Library of the Tower, but it's also a broken clock is featured in this episode, which is all over the tower. Like, they stop at 8:05, the ones that are wired in because of the lightning strike, which is 8 plus 5 equals 13, like the 13th story that you fall from. Anyway, or the rest of the clocks have wound down and no longer work. So I love it that the idea of also being out of time in the fifth dimension is kind of an interesting parallel here as well. But anyway, the cracked glasses were also in the Echo Library too, right, Kirk? You saw them in there?
Yeah, they're actually underneath the TV, but inside the cabinet. So it's like behind grating, where these ones are out in the open sitting on a stack of books. And there's books behind it, but the glasses, it's really, really hard to see. In fact, a cast member had to take a flashlight and show me because there was no other way. What's interesting to note is there are very circular lenses in the Twilight Zone episode, but yet the glasses that they selected here frame-wise are more of like a Ray-Ban Wayfarer.
Yeah,
and
they're
I'm not
not
sure
the same
why they
style.
decided. Yeah, I thought stylistically that was an odd choice, but
That is weird. Why would they do that? It'd be
I
so
don't know.
easy to pick them.
That's what I'm saying, bro. You're telling me.
Now I want the glasses replaced. This is a new
I'm
thing.
sorry, dude. I didn't mean to do that.
I don't know if these are still on the shelf in Foxtrot. That's something you're going to have to maybe go investigate, Kirk, or if they've moved them behind a grating.
I've been living in Echo, so I am excited to live in Foxtrot.
But it seems like a lot of these props that were references to the Twilight Zone, they've actually moved out of guests' reach because they have put them behind grating or up above or whatever. They've just moved them away, probably because guests mess with things, is my guess.
Mm-hmm.
The ledge above that actually has a ship that is very similar to the one that we saw in the previous library, although this one has 3 masts and that one has 4. But they're both the same ship, believe it or not. This is the 1780 Fragata Española. I don't know why some are portrayed with 3 masts and some are 4. If anybody is well versed in nautical history, please let us know. But apparently they are the same kind of ship. They look a little bit different though, so I might do some more homework and research on that and see if I can look at my ship models and see if I can find more about it. I just ran out of time for this week. So now we're in the last section of the room. We are on the bookshelves that are on the far side that are to the right of the exit, to the left of the TV. There's 2 large bookshelves there. We are going to go to the bottom shelf on the right, which has a trumpet. And then it has a couple of other statues and objects and a Ouija board on here. Now, we talked about the trumpet in the Echo library, and I told you I was going to go do some homework on this because it was very confusing what happened with the sheet music that is under the trumpet. I think I've kind of puzzled it out with Joshua's help. We both kind of thought about this and looked at it and got some updated photos of what is there now. So bear with me because this is going to get a little confusing for a moment, but it's going to be interesting. So here we go. So this trumpet is from the episode Passage for Trumpet, Season 1, Episode 32. We already talked about this one in depth, so I won't get into the story here. But this is what is currently in the Echo Library, which is The Wedding Party of Mickey Mouse. This was written in 1931 with words by Milt Coleman and James Kavanagh and music by Robert Begar. And it's actually like a laminated piece of music that's drilled into the shelf, which is kind of weird, quite honestly. This is the wedding party of Mickey Mouse. In the song, Mickey and Minnie are to be married in the garret of an old farmhouse. The party is well underway when the cat comes in and one of the other mice goes out, gets Rover, and Rover makes short work of the cat, after which the party continues. The melodies of both the verse and the chorus of the song are actually heard in the 1932 Mickey Mouse short, The Mad Dog. The Wedding Party of Mickey Mouse was written in 1931. And then that short came out in 1932. But the song itself actually had really disappointing sales. So a year later, publisher Keith Prowse created a song for the British and continental European markets. And this is where we enter the wedding party of Mr. Mickey Mouse. So we just had the wedding party of Mickey Mouse. Now this is the wedding of Mr. Mickey Mouse. And these are 2 different songs, okay? So unlike Wedding Party, this song was covered by all the major British record labels and some of the minor ones as well. It was a fun one for bands to include all the squeaks, squawks, and novelty effects that were in the song. And band members could either talk or sing in falsetto, doing impressions of Mickey and Minnie, or Dippy Dog, who was later known as Goofy, who was a newer character that they introduced in 1932. So they would use his goofy laugh that was new at the time and novel. The lyrics talk about Peg Leg Pete, Clarabelle Cow, and Pluto and made it endearing and even more popular with crowds. But the song was likely only ever published and distributed in Europe, as it makes a reference to the BBC, which wouldn't have been relevant to the American audience. So put a pin in that because that's interesting. The Echo Library used to be this song, The Wedding of Mr. Mickey Mouse, which was considered a novelty foxtrot and is from 1933. The words are from Edward Pola, the music's by Franz Vienna, and it was a song that was interestingly not commissioned by the studio at all. It capitalized on the popularity of Mickey Mouse, but it does say on the bottom, with special permission of Walt Disney, the creator of popular Mickey Mouse. I'm not entirely sure if this song was changed, Kirk, from recently from the more popular song to the less popular one, unless somebody mixed up the titles, which is possible, or because the Wedding Party of Mickey Mouse wouldn't have been distributed in America, so it was inaccurate as it was in 1994. it's either one or the other, and it's hard to say which. Does that make sense?
It does. I wish I could give you more insight as to why or what.
I honestly don't know, but it's interesting that they changed it from one to the other.
Do you think that's a continuity thing where just somebody was doing research and because there's two, it's easily a mix-up?
I lean towards they genuinely didn't know they were two different songs. Then
that's what I'm saying. Right. Exactly.
But it makes me feel better knowing that this particular song is more accurate to the time period because it would have been in America than the other one. So
I wonder, sheet music wise, which one matches up? Like, are they correct in the sheet music matching?
In terms of like, does the sheet music match the song?
Right.
Yeah. Yes, it does. It's the actual sheet music. So, and people say this is like a hidden Mickey because it references Mickey Mouse. So, okay. So that was in the Echo library. Okay. Everything I just told you was in Echo, but it's different in Foxtrot under the trumpet. Both scenes have a trumpet, but over in Foxtrot, the song has not changed as far as I can tell from 1994. So it changed in the other one, but not in this one. This is a 1932 novelty song called What No Mickey Mouse. What Kind of Party Is This? That's the title. And it's the Mickey Mouse Club theme song in the 1930s. Okay. So this song was actually composed by Irving Caesar, who was a prolific lyricist, also known for songs like Swanee and Tea for Two. During the 1930s, the expectation of Mickey Mouse at the theater show was so great, fans began to heckle and cry out, "What? No Mickey Mouse?" at any show that didn't have a Mickey Mouse short. The saying became so popular, the movement prompted Irving Caesar to create a song during the elections of 1932, jokingly calling for election of Mickey Mouse. So the lyrics to this are, "Vote for Mickey Mouse and make him our next president. To Congress, he is sure to say, meow, meow. Okay, okay, yeah, yeah, yes, yes, see, wee, wee. How dry I am, have one on me." And then he'll cry, "Give me the facts, give me my axe, I'll cut your tax. He'll show us all what can be done when he's in Washington. So let's give the White House to slicky, wacky, wiki, Bolsheviki Mickey Mouse." So let's elect Mickey Mouse for president is basically what this is saying. However, you're going to love this, Kirk, because they changed the lyrics in 1970. Okay. They changed part of it. The part that was like let's give the White House to, the Bolsheviki Mickey Mouse. They changed that part and they changed it to, "So let's give Nixon's house to that slicky, wacky, wiki-tacky, tricky Mickey Mouse." So there's a reference to Richard M. Nixon.
Your boy.
So
I feel like you play the Kevin Bacon, the 5 degrees, but with Nixon and Disney history.
Oh, it's so true though. Like, he's literally referenced in this song with Mickey Mouse. It's like, how many Nixon references? I think this is like 9, maybe 10 ways that Nixon is connected to Disney history. It's absolutely crazy. And not the only way he's connected to Tower of Terror, because he was married in one of the places that the tower was modeled after. It was where he got married. So Nixon's everywhere. You just can't fight it. Just let it be. But anyway, I thought that was fun. And so that's kind of what's going on with the sheet music there. This one hasn't changed, and it's the Mickey Mouse for President, essentially What No Mickey Mouse music in this one. And the wedding party confusion is all in the other room. But there's some other interesting things on the shelf. Kirk, do you have anything about like the Ouija board or the statues? Where'd you like to go next?
Let's go to the statues first.
Okay.
So the statue that we see here to the right is actually for religious purposes. And this is a Bodhisattva known as Ganyan, which, if you don't know, let me back it up a little bit. Bodhisattva comes from Buddhism. Buddhism is the belief that all life is suffering. Now, that seems very negative, but the cause of all suffering is desire. So if you can remove desire from your life and have less needs, then you will eventually remove all of the pain of life. So if you are able to remove desire, then you have reached what Buddhists will call nirvana. Now, somebody that has achieved nirvana is called a bodhisattva. And if they've decided not to ascend and move on with their life and help others to reach nirvana, then they are usually seen as not only just teachers but deities. And this one in particular is the 1,000-armed Gaian, and all of the arms are signifying endless help to try to remove your suffering from your life. So that's essentially what we're doing here, is removing the suffering from those that are in pain here on Earth.
Oh, well, I kind of like that.
I like I love I minored in Asian religion in college. I know that sounds really I
don't think I knew that.
I was a history major, and I dual majored in education, and then my minor, just because I took so many Asian cultures and studies, and particularly religions, I ended up with a minor in it. So and I got like a scholarship to go study abroad, and so it was crazy. But anyway,
interesting.
So yeah, I've always been fascinated with this concept of like removing yourself from desire to have less pain in the world, because if you're always longing and wanting for something, you're always never satisfied. Let's talk about the Swami board in the background, right? So a Swami talking board came from the 1940s, and particularly the one that is here is a non-Ouija brand talking board. Most people know Ouija boards, and this certainly is the same exact style as a Ouija board. Coincidentally, this started much, much later than Ouija. So these style talking boards were very, very popular, particularly in like the 1800s, like 1840s. There was a spiritualism movement, which we had talked about a long time ago with the Haunted Mansion, about like wanting to do like seances and speaking to the spirit world. So like with like the Fox sisters in 1948, and communicating with the dead was really, really popular. In the 1880s is when talking boards were created, particularly the Ouija ones, and the Kennard Novelty Company formed a mass-produced board in 1891, branding it Ouija. And the story goes that the seance board creator asked it to name itself, and it spelled out the word Ouija. And the group thought that meant good luck, so therefore Ouija boards were made. The Swami board here, and you know, Ouija boards were like crazy popular.
Yeah.
In like the 1944, 50,000 boards were sold.
Wow.
And that's when Parker Brothers acquired it shortly after and outsold Monopoly in the 1960s. In 1967, they sold 2 million Ouija boards.
Wow.
And then what's funny is when The Exorcist came out in 1973, the sales of Ouija boards plummeted as people were terrified that they would bring a demonic soul and possess themselves. much like Jaws and films and culture affect behavior of like the commonplace man, and people didn't go to the beach, the Ouija boards went away. But this one, I like the Swami board. It's kind of interesting because it has a lot of this like it's got like genies, scales of justice. There's an archer, there's a moon, good reception, bad reception. There's like people on magic carpets. And yeah, so the Swami mystery talking board. Now I have to ask you, Kate.
Yeah.
Did you ever use a Ouija board? Because I found a really, really old Ouija board that was made out of wood. And then eventually, of course, they get made as like cardboard and whatnot. But did you ever do a Ouija board?
I do not, only because of I had grown up Christian, and these were always very scary and whatnot. We were taught a lot about demons in Christianity, and I didn't even want to go close to anything that would conjure something like that into my world. So that's why I haven't ever done it.
Look at these Christians, though. I feel like you would fit right in with these people at a seance table, you know?
I'm not condemning anybody for doing it. That's why I have never done it.
No.
But
I did it when I was a kid. We had a Ouija board growing up, and it was dumb. Every time I kept on going like, this thing's moving, but it's like who's controlling it? Because somebody's moving it on here. There's like 6 of us on this thing, it ain't just moving on its own, you know?
Yeah, it's got to be somebody. It's to me, I'm like, this has to be like people moving it. It like, unless it's just like, if you set it down on its own and it moves all by itself, then I'd be convinced. But like until that day, I'm not convinced. So just saying.
It's silly, but they were very, very popular. Look at these people. 2 women in a diner using a Ouija board in 1940.
Wow, with a jukebox and everything.
They're having a great time, dude.
Yeah.
Food comes first. Food will win the war. Look at that in the background.
Eat wisely.
That's fun.
Yeah. So in our chat, Joshua says, "We" is yes in French and "ja" is yes in German. So Ouija.
Guess what? The board always tells you what you want to hear. It's a yes man.
It does. Just unlike the mystic seer, which just tells you vague things that you can interpret as you will.
Yeah, the Mystic Seer is more like a magic 8-ball, where the Swami board here in the Tower of Terror, well, I mean, it does have a no. It also says goodbye. So, yeah.
But we don't have the little like thing that like you have to move. I don't remember what that's called. What do you know what that's called? The thing that moves around.
I don't know. The thing that moves around and points at stuff, and you go, all right, that's what it's spelling.
I'm sure it has a name. But didn't the ones that you were showing said that it was 1940 was what they dated that as?
It's saying 1940s. I wonder if it's just because Ouija is like a brand name and they couldn't use the brand name board in the tower, you know?
Yeah, but they could have used one of those old wooden ones that you showed me.
Yeah, I guess it's saying 1940 though. So this is like way out of place in terms of period.
It's the next year. So unless somebody came into the tower after everything happened and stuck it in there, which is not likely, that technically shouldn't be in there, right?
I mean, there are aliens in here, so I think we can suspend belief a little bit.
The only other things we see on the shelf are 2 kind of bronze statues that kind of like mirror each other, and then a bust of a young woman. But we're going to move on just for time's sake. Just in the middle of the shelf, there is also behind the grating, there are a couple of vases and artifacts. But what is not in this picture in 1994, but is there now, is there's actually an envelope that says Rod Serling. This is from A World of His Own, Twilight Zone episode, season 1, episode 36, which we talked about our previous episode, where playwright Gregory West can create and erase people from his existence by dictating details into his tape recorder. He unwrites it by then burning the tapes, which happen to be stuffed into labeled envelopes with the name of the person. When his wife, Victoria, is one of his creations, and when she discovers his power, Gregory erases her and decides to keep his mistress, Mary, instead. So in the other Echo library, there's an envelope that says Victoria West. That is from this episode. And then they break the fourth wall at the end of the episode, and there's an envelope with host Rod Serling's name on it, and then he is erased as well. So that is what this envelope is in this particular one that has Rod Serling's name on it, is from this episode, and the idea that he could be erased, which I think is interesting.
All right. Just don't put my name on any envelopes, Kate.
I'm just going to put it on the shelf next week. It'll just be like, Kirk.
Horrible, dude. I don't like that. I don't like this at all.
Oh, the Ouija plate is called a planchette. Thank you, Joshua, for that.
Well, there's no planchette. Where's the planchette, Josh? Where's it at, dude?
There's no planchette. Yeah.
There's no planchette.
Accurate. Over on the right bookshelf ledge, there is that alien from the Twilight Zone episode called The Invaders from season 2, episode 15, which we talked about last week, but it's there up on the shelf. There's 2 elaborate candelabra that I think are Louis XVI, based on their shapes of like these kind of like almost like tulip shapes on them. Also, to the left-hand side of that is the marble horse head that we also saw in the Echo Library, the horse head of the Chariot of Selene, which is a marble statue from the east pediment of the Parthenon. So this is a duplicate of the same one that we see in the other room. Moving on to the left shelf, there is on the bottom shelf, there's a whole bunch of what I look like Chinese artifacts here. There's a cannon, there's a couple of vases, and there's a dragon head. And then there's also this really interesting ornate lacquered bucket on the right. Do you have anything about that, Kirk, you want to share?
I do. So that's actually a water bucket. And So this is a 19th century gilt wood lacquered dragon's head water bucket. So it actually has a spout where the mouth is. If you notice in Kate's picture, I was able to find one that sold for $200 on eBay. And what is cool is that it shows us how they open. So it's on a hinge. So the very top section, that little dragon mouth, will actually hinge up and you put the water in there. Now, I did translate this section in the inside because I was just curious. That's actually just a maker's mark. So it's nothing fancy or like a phrase that's interesting. This one just says, record root suitable, excellent, superior. But it's not like, it's just their like the brand name, if you will.
Not like some sort
underneath.
of like allegory about water. Like...
Yeah, it's not like he who seeketh thy water from thy dragon head mouth is more learned than the hummingbird.
It should be
there's
that.
nothing like that.
It should be that. Yeah.
But I like seeing his mouth up close too, because it like opens up. That's on a hinge too.
Oh yeah, that's pretty neat.
But yeah,
I love
just
that.
give you a little bit of movement. That is the lacquered water dropper bucket with the dragon head for a spout. And then on the left-hand side, there is a bronze of a dragon head. And I was able to find in the Smithsonian lots of different dragon heads, none that looked exactly like that, but a lot of these ones were called pole standard heads. And they would, they would sit more upright than the ones that I were able to find. But dragons were important for rituals and processionals, and they served often as heavenly or yang power, historically with imperial authority. So I wasn't able to find any more about the specifics of that one. I was able to find another dragon head bronze. This one is from the Met. They're all cool looking.
Yeah.
But I don't have a specific symbolism except for like authority, heavenly, and the empire.
Well, they did have that in the other library as well. They had a whole section. It wasn't on a shelf like this. It was up on the ledge, but they had a whole section with dragons and a decorative plate. And so they definitely had like a Chinese section with dragons in both libraries, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
Do you find anything out about this canon? Like, I didn't look up this canon.
No, because it looks identical to the other signal cannons, and same with like the vases. The vases remind me very much of like the hand painted ones that we had seen in the other room. So
yeah, for sure.
And that one again, as signal cannons go, it has like ridges to it, which I thought was interesting. We saw that on one of the styles. There's actually like 3 signal cannons in Echo, where I was only able to find this one in Foxtrot.
Yeah, interesting. There's less cannons in Foxtrot. I don't know if that's significant.
This does, though, have a discerning eye would notice that this does have dolphin handles, though.
Yeah, that's true. It does have dolphin handles. And like I said, remember how I talked about how we'll see a lot of porcelain in this room? I think this is where we're starting to see it. Like, there are a lot of vases also in Echo. I'm not saying there isn't, but I feel like there's more vases in this room, probably because of the book and what they're researching. But you see good examples of them here. Up above this, in the bookshelf itself, there is a shelf that has like a decanter with some sort of liquid in it that's super dark, and then some glass vases next to it. So I don't know if you know anything about this, Kirk, at all.
I took a stab at the liquid being like port or sherry.
Okay, something.
But I can't tell what because it doesn't look like any other type of spirit, but some sort of,
it's Guinness.
It's dark. Be the worst way to drink a Guinness out of that thing.
Right.
Be vinegar by the time you got to it.
He's so gross.
That's why I think it's a spirit,
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Then up above on this shelf, there's just a few more artifacts. And the only one that I kind of looked up, Kirk, was the one that's on the far right, which is actually the bust of Athena, who is the Greek goddess of wisdom, war strategy, and crafts. Athena embodied intelligent warfare and strategic skill. She was also the patron goddess of Athens, famously born full-grown and armored from the head of her father, Zeus. Like, that's a rough birth if your baby is armored, just saying. Athena is often depicted with an owl, a symbol of wisdom, a shield bearing the head of Medusa, and a helmet, which we see here. She has a helmet. And she was a virgin goddess and one of the 12 Olympians, revered for her justice, courage, and cleverness. So we see Athena. So the other things that we see on this shelf, various vases and pots. Again, the porcelain theme that we have in this room. And then there's a couple of statues and another head as well. But I didn't get into any detail of these just because I ran out of time. And I think we are kind of out of time in this episode. And it really feels very much like an Antique Roadshow kind of vibe in this whole thing. There's so many things to look at in this library. It's hard to go over them all, but hopefully that gives you some things to look for the next time you go and you're like, okay, well, that's that. And oh, look over here. And that's probably hidden over there. And you may only see a couple of them because you're in there for such a short period of time and it's dark the most of the time you're there. But in any case, hopefully that gives you some context of what you're looking at when you go into the Foxtrot library.
There's a bunch of stuff in there, dude. It looks like a shenanigans. It's like they just like took a tuba and hung it on the wall.
All right. So that's where we're going to come to a stop in Foxtrot Library today. Next week, we'll come back and we'll finish the other half, which has its own interesting things that are different from the other library. And then after that, we're going to step into the boiler room and start digging into more steam engines and things that we love on this show. So get ready, kids. It's going to be great. But thank you all for joining us for this episode of Distory. We hope you learned a few interesting new words, phrases, history that you had never considered before, and also some references to the Twilight Zone. Kirk, do you have any final thoughts here as we wrap up?
All I'm going to say is, if you're not telling your friends where the calyx is on a flower, we ain't cool.
I think that the most interesting thing we found in this room is the fact that there could potentially be kind of like a porcelain sculpture theme, and that note on the desk that talks about scene setting with porcelain and earthquakes and stuff. I think that's one of the coolest things that we found this week. So very excited to see how that ties into the rest of the room. Well, thank you all for being with us for this episode of Distory. We will see you next time for more from the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror.